The deepest betrayals don't come from your enemies. They come from the ones who share your blood. This is the story of Absalom, a prince whose beauty, charisma, and ambition were matched only by a heart poisoned with revenge. And it's the story of his father David, a king who loved his children fiercely, yet was forced to watch his own son rise against him in the deadliest family coup Israel had ever faced. Absalom was, by all accounts, the most admired man in Israel. He was handsome, regal, and so charming that people couldn't help but notice him. But beneath that perfect exterior, a deep wound festered, one that never truly healed. His sister, Tamar, had been horrifically violated by their half-brother, Amnon, and David, their father, a king known for his justice, and a man described as being after God's own heart, did nothing. He was silent. For Absalom, that silence was a deafening betrayal. Rage began to burn inside him, and for 2 long years, he plotted his revenge. Then, one day, he acted. He had Amnon killed. In his mind, it was justice finally served. But it was also cold, calculated revenge. David wept for his dead son, Amnon, but in his grief, he turned his back on his other son. He refused to see Absalom. The father distanced himself, and the son felt rejected, abandoned. In that cold distance, bitterness took root and began to grow. After years living in exile, Absalom was finally allowed to return to Jerusalem. But the king's forgiveness had its limits. David still refused to see him. Absalom lived so close to the palace, yet he was worlds away from his father's heart. And in that emotional void, a dangerous plan was born. Absalom began a quiet, methodical campaign to win the hearts of the people of Israel. He did it one handshake, one shared complaint, one whispered promise at a time. He would stand near the city gate, the place where legal matters were decided, and he'd say to the people, "If only I were the judge in this land. If only someone truly cared about your problems, I would make sure you got justice." He would listen to their troubles, smile warmly, and even kiss their hands as a sign of respect. And Israel fell in love with him. For 4 years, Absalom patiently built his quiet revolution, a son secretly building an army to use against his own father. One morning, Absalom went to David with a seemingly innocent request. "Please, let me go to Hebron to fulfill a vow I made to the Lord." David, perhaps hoping for a sign of his son's renewed faith, smiled and blessed him. He had no idea he was sending a venomous snake back to its nest. Once in Hebron, the ancient capital where David himself had been crowned, Absalom sounded the trumpet. The signal was sent. He declared himself the new king. Messengers raced throughout the land, carrying the shocking news. Absalom reigns in Hebron. The hearts he had so carefully stolen now became soldiers in his army. The news hit Jerusalem like an earthquake. Whispers turned to panicked shouts in the streets. David's own son is the king now. And David, the legendary giant slayer, the warrior king, the sweet psalmist of Israel, was forced to flee his own palace. He ran barefoot, weeping, utterly humiliated by the son he had created. As David and his few loyal followers made their sorrowful journey across the Mount of Olives, his head was covered as a sign of deep mourning. In his heart, he whispered to God, "If this is your judgment upon me, then let it be." But he also offered a desperate, strategic prayer. "Lord, please turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness." Ahithophel had been David's most brilliant and trusted advisor, but he had betrayed the king and joined Absalom's coup. That betrayal stung deeper than any physical sword wound. Absalom now had the numbers, the momentum, and the best strategist in the kingdom. But David had something more powerful. Absalom had the army, but David had the Lord. And God heard David's prayer. Absalom marched toward his father with an army thousands strong. The two forces finally clashed in the dense Forest of Ephraim, a treacherous place where the tangled trees and hidden pits became a deadlier enemy than any sword. As the battle raged, David gave a specific, heartfelt command to his generals, "For my sake, deal gently with the young man Absalom." Even now, betrayed and fighting for his life, David's love for his rebellious son remained. But in the chaos of the fight, Absalom, riding his mule, passed under the low-hanging branches of a great oak tree. His famous long hair, the very symbol of his pride and vanity, became tangled in the limbs. The mule ran on, but Absalom was left hanging, helpless, suspended between heaven and earth. It was there that Joab, David's hardened general, found him. Ignoring the king's direct plea for mercy, Joab took 3 spears and thrust them into Absalom's heart. The rebellion was crushed. The coup was over. The prince was dead. When the news of the victory reached David, he didn't celebrate. He didn't declare a holiday or shout in triumph. He collapsed. All he could do was cry out in agony, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom. If only I had died instead of you. Oh, Absalom, my son, my son." It was the raw, broken cry of a father, grieving for the son who had become his greatest enemy. The sound of his wailing echoed through the city. His loyal warriors, the men who had just risked their lives to save his kingdom, stood by in stunned silence. The victory suddenly felt like a devastating defeat. The story of Absalom teaches us that charisma without character is a path to destruction. It shows us that ambition without humility will curdle into rebellion. And it warns us that wounds we refuse to treat will eventually become weapons we use against others. The story of David teaches us that even the strongest and most righteous leaders can fail their own families. It shows that even a heart shattered by betrayal can still find the capacity to love. And it reminds us that even in our most profound moments of loss, God remains near. But perhaps the deepest and most chilling lesson is this: not every enemy will come from outside your walls. Sometimes the most dangerous battle you will ever fight is with someone who lives under your own roof. Absalom stole the kingdom of Israel, but in the process, he completely lost himself. David lost his kingdom for a moment, but he lost his son forever. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more.